Everybody can see my screen, thumbs up. Okay, great. All right, so this is PulseLocal SoCal, a virtual edition. It's a virtual edition because really PulseLocal SoCal was meant for, you know, like a city or a county. But during these COVID times, we've been working with Lauren at Gainsight, who's on the call, to create a kind of virtual edition for all of SoCal so that we can kind of all come together with people in our own backyard and, you know, actually learn something so that once we can come back together, we actually will know each other, which is really exciting. So the bookshop series, I'll go into that in just a second, but it's the every third Thursday of the month at 12 o'clock. And next, if you can right now in the chat window, I don't see where my chat window is, but in the chat window, if you could just say hi to everybody, enter your name, your city and state, even if you're outside of Southern California, no problem. And then take a look at these 4 breakout rooms and decide which one you want and mark it as either Laura, Tiffany, Rick, or Dana, depending on which topic you're most interested in having the discussion with. So while you guys are doing that, and is everybody able to? There we go, chat. Ha ha ha, there it is. Hi, everybody. Okay, and while you guys do that, I want to give you a little bit of background. So the idea of morphing this kind of book club and workshop really kind of stemmed from my own involvement in the customer success community. So, you know, a book club is typically something where you're reading a book and discussing it. And then a workshop is typically where you're with other people and you're putting something into action, getting actual takeaways for your own business. And so I wanted to kind of morph the two of those, hence the bookshop idea, so that we're not just reading a book, that we're actually giving ideas to each other on, oh, I know about this topic. This is something I've dealt with. This is how we dealt with it. And everybody will be like, oh, that's a great idea. Or I've done this. I really want it to be a discussion where the end result is solid takeaways of and ideas that we can share with the community. If anybody's familiar with like the Customer Success Forum on LinkedIn or the Gain, Grow, and Retain weekly calls, office hours, it's kind of that type of format. But I want to be able to use the book as a way to be able to continue the conversation by using something that is that our field is really moving towards, which is more of a customer success economy, and I'll get into that in a second. So although customer success started in the 90s, it's still relatively new, which is apparent in the fact that we still don't have any standardized practices, although we're working on it as a field, but it's slow going. And so because of that, we're a little bit like the Wild West in customer success. Anything goes. We all try different things, and we're just collaborating as a group to try and figure out what works for other people. Give me deliverables. Have you done this? Give me a presentation. What was your tactic on this? And so that's what I really want this bookshop to be about. So I think within our community, we're all kind of known as collaborators, helpers, doers, sharers. That's kind of customer success people in general. So I want to make sure that we walk away with our collective knowledge and then talk about something that's of interest to us, which is why I wanted you to put in the chat window, if you haven't yet, which breakout you'd like to be a part of. So the purpose of using the Customer Success Economy book is it's being used as a collaboration tool to be able to ask for ideas on how someone has tackled a suggestion that's already been made in the book, share ideas of how we've tackled a suggestion made in the book within our companies. And then if nobody's tackled it, then let's brainstorm together in our breakouts on how it could be done, so that we can make sure that we have some solid takeaways. So a little bit about the format real quickly before we move on. The first 10 minutes, we're a little bit over. I just want to give you guys this quick overview. We'll then break out right now. Sorry. We'll then break out into our groups. There'll be 10 minutes for an icebreaker question. The moderators get to choose what that is. Then the next 30 minutes is discussing the topic question. And then we'll all come back as a group like we are right now, to allow you guys to put in a chat box what your key takeaway was, as the moderators are sharing one key takeaway from their group that kind of everybody thought really resonated with the group. And then I'll go over a few follow-ups after that. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. Okay, great. So everybody, have you put your idea in?
So I'm only missing 2 people to hear from: John, Jesse, and Laura Sellers. Oh, it looks like John wants to join your group, Dana. And so we just need to hear from Laura. We'll be able to open up the rooms.
All right, great. And if not, then just stick them in a room. Okay, so really quick, the Customer Success Economy book is broken up into 3 parts. So part 1, we're going to go over today and next month, and it's focusing on the evolution of customer success. What does it look like now, and how did it get to where it is today? Part 2 will cover over November, December, and January, and it explores the kind of company that the CS economy requires. What is required from every function: product, services, support, customer success, sales, so on and so forth. And it gives really great examples. And then part 3 will be on February 18th and March 18th, and it will actually discuss how to implement those and what steps you need to take to roll these ideas out into your own organization. So really exciting. Just want to give you the 411 on that. Okay, all right, so let's go ahead and break out into the breakout. So moderators, spend the first 5-10 minutes with your icebreaker so everybody can get to know each other. Please, everybody participate, and then we're ready to get started.
So I'm going to go ahead and start that right now. Excellent. So I think it'd be fun to also do, since we kind of just got to know each other briefly, as an icebreaker, what have you been doing as a guilty pleasure in COVID that you wouldn't normally do otherwise?
I've been a remote worker for almost 5 years now, so I don't really have any of those left. But in my spare time, I've actually been doing my customer success certification through Success Hacker. So that's what I've been using any spare time. I just finished their level 4, which is the highest one they offer. So yeah, that's been a blast.
That's great. You might have to pop that in the chat for us.
Yeah, certainly.
What about you, Anthony?
Guilty pleasure. I don't know if I can think of any. Just like Ty, I've worked remote, so I'm kind of like, it's just normal day for me. It's one of those things though that, I think it's more about adjusting to others than anything else, instead of people adjusting to me, just because I'm already set in my office and stuff. And I think it's the others that I think I try to help out. But guilty pleasure, I don't think I could think of anything. I just, it's always, I travel a lot, so it's always nice to just be home. My suitcase used to sit like right here next to me, but now it's in the garage somewhere. So I don't have to worry about that.
So definitely some changes. Yeah. You know, it's funny. I'm remote as well. So it's been the same thing for me. I mean, you know, maybe watching, I did watch Tiger King, you know, when everything started. That's not something I would have watched outside of COVID, but so a little bit of guilty pleasure there.
So did you go from a brick and mortar to a remote?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
No, actually, we've also been remote. So we generally work as a remote company. I definitely had more in-person meetings because I'm on the west side of Los Angeles. So before COVID, even though I was working remotely, I would go to clients more. Of course, now it is very much, you know, just Zoom, and I miss the personal element. That's okay. We all adapt, right?
Yep.
It's different. It's different. It's hard to be, you know, charming. Somebody put a sales guy told me it's hard to be charming, you know, on Zoom. I just don't know how to do it. It's not the same.
It's true. And look at animals, you know, those things play a role. Great. Well, let's launch into, I'm going to pop up really quickly the questions that we're, you know, that we can talk about and kind of share our thoughts around. Share the screen here. And then, of course, we can also discuss other things when it comes to what, you know, the first chapter covered. But I know, obviously, you guys were both really interested in talking about these company mindset shifting solutions. And so I've got a couple questions here, and we'll just kind of start with the first. I'll read through them, and then we can spitball about what we're doing now or what we've seen as a challenge. So even, you know, is your current company or the past company or companies that you've worked with in the past ready for, or at least currently working toward, this organizational mindset shift that the customer success economy argues is really important? So, you know, that kind of being putting the customers first, right? And thinking about how we deliver success less as, and less of how do we resolve maybe if an issue comes up. So have you guys experienced any challenges, or what are some of the things that you guys do?
Yeah, and I think it's constant too. So our customer success team is about 3, maybe 4 years old, and we started off kind of just with some pilots that we were doing. That's how we started customer success, and then we brought in, like, I came from the field service side of things. So I think, you know, years later, it's still like an ongoing advertising, kind of defining what the role is. I don't mean defining like internally within the team. I mean to others. Just this week, I got a question. So wait, what does your team do again? You know, it's like, I feel like there's that constant need to define that, which in a way makes me think like people don't get it, or we're not doing a good job of really getting a good cadence or something to that effect. So I feel like that's a kind of a challenge, and I feel like it's going to be ongoing.
What are some of the things that you've done, Anthony, when people are asking you to kind of define? Have you taken steps to try to reduce the need to continually explain, or is it something that you right now are just facing a challenge on?
So we have taken steps. So we're kind of regionalized. So the success managers are regionalized. And so they've done, I call it advertising, but kind of getting involved with the different teams. So like with the regional sales folks, with the regional field service folks, and to kind of, one, kind of get into the mix, right? To like try to get into their meetings and stuff like that. And two, to like almost remind them like, hey, by the way, I can do this for you, or I'm helping a customer do this, or I'm in conversations about that. So I feel like that's ongoing. So helping them out by reminding them of who we are is one of the steps that we're taking. And then for me, I work with the other directors or VPs to kind of spread that word out on a higher scale and get them a little bit more involved. So like the other regional managers, senior managers, get them more involved with things that I'm doing, or kind of do a little bit cross collaboration.
That's great. So kind of eliminating some silos, maybe. What about you, Ty?
Yeah, so I strongly believe that customer success has strong value to add to literally every department in the company, right? From marketing to sales to engineering to product. And so what I've done, at least in my previous company, is basically provide value to each of those, you know, individual branches of the company. And through that kind of showing versus continuously telling them what customer success can do, not just for the client, but also for the overall company, to try to embed that into, hopefully creating a more of a top-down, as discussed in the book, structure that simply didn't exist. So for clarity, my company was top-down structured customer success. It was acquired by a massive acquisition company that only kept customer success because it was tied to some contracts.
I got it.
Yeah.
So how do you think that will impact obviously we all believe very much and know that customer success is important. What implications do you think that will have for the success of that kind of acquisition and then moving forward?
Yeah. So what it's done over the last 2 years since working with the acquisition company is it's really, endeared CS as valuable, not just to the client and to the contract, but internally at the company, right? CS is really good also at finding where the gaps are in any other parts of the process, right? In handoffs, in communication to product. And so they also play a really pivotal role in kind of the organizational changes that need to occur. So they've really started to utilize those portions of it.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
Ty, do you I guess, what kind of roadblocks do you run into? And I'll make an example is, do you feel like there's ever, you're stepping on someone's toes as far as maybe some of the other teams when you're, proactively trying to do something, but it feels like you're kind of messing with their area of expertise or kind of with something that their team is doing?
Yeah, I use a strategy I like to call playing dumb. Honestly, where I just go, hey, I don't know if this would be useful, but I found this, and maybe we could look at it together, right? I really do, I don't know anything, and let's look at this together. Maybe you have some insight, right? People like to always feel like they're the expert. We do the same thing with our clients,
right?
And I just use the same, we'll call them what they are, manipulative tactics that we use, externally and internally.
That's great. Anthony, have you guys tried something similar? Or do you guys encounter the same kind of concern with stepping on toes?
Yeah. There's it's always that, the kind of it feels that way. I think at the end of the day, if you're doing right by the customer, if you're trying to meet that goal, there's no wrong way of doing it, right? If you're trying to get towards satisfaction, adoption, retention, right? Those buzzwords, then I think that's good. It's just sometimes that path of getting there can seem a little bit bumpy. And it's not in a negative way. I don't feel like anybody feels like you purposely are, but it's they're working on let's say a break fix issue. We have a lot of mechanical stuff, right? So it's a break fix issue. You are trying to get involved to kind of manage some of that, but there's somebody that's responsible of managing it. So it kind of feels like you're overlapping in a way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't want to take their thunder because that's what they're doing. But you kind of know in the background, hey, this one break fix issue is affecting all this other stuff that we're trying to work on. So it's hard. It's a hard balance.
Yeah.
So one of my biggest fears is that when I go to anyone else in the organization to ask a question or whatever, that their first thought is, oh crap, what now? Right? So I always try to make sure that I'm doing solids for them, just,
yes.
That have nothing related per se to what I'm doing to help them out, so that when I come to ask them, that there's kind of a copacetic desire to help. Do you utilize processes like that now?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, we're on the same path there. I think it's a give and take. Totally. It's I don't want to say a favor, but it's almost like that. You know what I mean? It's because, and the thing about success is we're not in field service, we're not in sales, we're not in product management, but we touch on each and every single one of those. So I feel like if we can maybe get a little bit of what we're doing here and bring it over to the other team to help them out, it kind of goes a long way, so that next time you need a little bit more of information, or you need an analyst to get onto something now, right? You can kind of pull that or use that as leverage. But in a way, I think it's a win-win though. I mean, they're getting something out of it, you're getting something out of it.
So when you do have those win-wins, how do you disseminate that to the rest of the organization?
Mm-hmm. A great question.
Good question. Yeah. So I think we try to spread that along the team. So with my team, with the CS team, and kind of get so we meet every other week, just kind of as a team, and kind of go through some, learning experiences, things that are happening and things like that. So we kind of share some of that, and whatever's helpful for someone else, that's how we get the word out. And of course, it's my responsibility to kind of make sure that if it's a process thing, then it's something I need to think about maybe implementing or working with. I mentioned product management. So if it's something that we see that we're doing often, hey, maybe it's something that'll benefit to set a process for it. So it's that type of thinking that we are heading towards. I'm not saying it's set in stone today, but that's a one way, I guess, of doing it that we're trying to do.
I used to do really embarrassingly large like shout outs, right? Like I had one for a massive project I did where I collaborated with pretty much every team. And I did this big blog post called "Success is Not a Silo," where I individually called out each contributor who helped in the process, made sure that it was on the executive board's visibility, that they were called out, which also gave them pressure to respond to it and see the collaborative efforts. Like stuff like that not only helps people like when they go to do their own like reviews, right, for a raise or a promotion, right, like that they were collaborative. But it also puts like larger pressure really on being active in those kind of collaborative projects. So
Have you guys found when you're thinking about trying to kind of have conversations with silos or bridge those, right, to share with everyone the importance of customer success or even get them started thinking about it, do you find that, and this may vary, do you find that you have people who are your champions who are all on board and who then spread it and who are your go-tos, or do you find that the kind of groups, I mean, do you try to kind of get in and talk to all the groups or talk to the group as a whole, or does it work better to find a champion, or is it a mix of both?
Good question.
Yeah, I want to go back to something Ty said just a little bit earlier, which is, lead by, or what was it? Not lead by example, but, kind of what you show them. Yeah, show them something, right? Show them what you can do. I forgot the exact wording. I just lost it.
Me too.
Show them what you can do, to kind of prove yourself, basically, right? So that, I think that's the best way of doing it. And especially like with us, we're a new group. So it's not like we've been here 5 years, 10 years. It's a fairly new group. We're just trying to get like some of the basics down, let alone, trying to like really fully immerse ourselves in every single thing within the organization. So I think it's, we take those few examples and it kind of just spreads out. So most recently we had this good collaboration with sales, and it was one of those things where they were kind of going along with us, kind of not, but then it was like this one example where they worked together for a couple of months and all of a sudden it's like the next sales guy, like they all started coming to this one person, and it was great because that shows that, that one example spread out and people saw value in it.
So I think sharing your successes. Sorry. Oh no, I was going to say, just reiterating. Yeah, that's great. It seems like you're both of you sharing your successes and making sure those are communicated, right? So everyone kind of sees and says, I want in.
Right.
Question for you, Anthony. In your sales cycle, have you ever tried doing like CS qualified leads? So that would be, so at the end of the pipeline, right, we really know what makes a successful customer and what's like a bad fit. And so sales spends a lot of time trying to find like that right fit. So sometimes if CS can come in and help, like if they think, someone's a possible, big logo that they want or big contract that they're going after, just offering time in the sales cycle, like, hey, I would love to come in and, hear your pitch session, or, hear what solutions they're looking for to be able to help qualify those leads a little better. Because sometimes they're shitty leads, right? Sorry, excuse me. That's being recorded.
That's totally fine. And insurance.
Yeah. That's going to cost the, company a bunch of money because at the end of the day, solutions that you offer don't match what sales is trying to tell them. And shortening that pipeline for them can be really helpful. I found that was my best way to get into sales.
Yeah, absolutely. And we try to do that, especially with our current customers, right? Our current customer base. So we're constantly talking to them. So we're in the know, right? So it's like, hey, we're actually thinking about changing our dispense model or something like that. And it's like light bulb comes up. So right away we get, if we know that it's, maybe it's a 6-month plan, year plan, it's still soon. That's still really soon considering how long a sales cycle can go. So we send that, we get sales involved. And so that's one of the benefits. So yes, absolutely. That's one of the ways we try to work with sales on that part. Yeah.
Is there another way you work with sales? Because I'd be certainly curious myself.
Sure. Well, the external part, we have an inside sales team. So we have an external or outside and an inside sales team. So they do a lot of the vetting. What we do is focus a lot on our current customer base. And the way so we're actually not structured with any sales incentives. So we are focused on driving adoption and retention, but we don't have any incentives. And the reason for that is because we want to clearly tell our customers, like, hey, I'm not in sales. I'm not about sales. I don't make money. I don't make a commission off this. Like I don't have it. There's no strings attached. Like truly, I am here to understand what it is that you need. What do you want? And how do we get there with what you purchase or with some additional things that you can purchase?
Yeah.
And that again drives that side. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
I see. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Laura.
No, I was going to say, I think those separating can be beneficial, but I also think when, Ty's point about if you bring in, when there are opportunities, sometimes at the pipeline level, sometimes sales, they're not always selling the right fit, right? So that can be beneficial, but it's great that you have those things separate, because then you can really put a stake in the ground, like you were saying, and say, I'm not selling you on anything. I'm just here to support you.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to become sales folks either. We want to, we have an organization just for that. So, it's our job to make sure that the customer has what they need, because sometimes it could be over automated or sometimes it could be under automated, right? So we want to make sure though that it's working for them. Sometimes the customer will come out and say, hey, this thing is costing too much a month, 5 years, 10 years down the road, we need a decommission. Well, that's our turn to show value in actually what they have. But then if it's true, if it comes down to like, hey, maybe it's about telling them something a little bit less, then that's when we get sales involved and kind of go in explaining how to best fit the automation with that customer.
Yeah, Anthony, you bring up a really good point with it's really important to become that trusted advisor versus just a vendor, right? For them to know that you're there and your sole goal is to see them be successful. I often think and I was just at a meeting with Grow, Gain, Return, or whatever it's called, right, on the Customer Success Survey of 2020. And I think it was over 50% of the of CS people work on, some sort of commission process, which I think is just an absolute conflict of interest.
I agree.
Right? Like it leads to some really, kind of salesy behavior if you know that part of your livelihood depends on them buying something. Yeah.
Have either of you experienced in the customer success process, and I think, Ty, you were kind of alluding to this, a scenario maybe where sales sold the wrong products, and how have you, right, and how do you, so I'm curious, because I think that then highlights the need for sales to better understand the goals of customer success, and then how have you addressed that? What are the kind of steps that you've taken to?
Yeah, okay, fire.
Well, I think internally, it's an educational piece. So it becomes, this is, we sold it great, right? Who doesn't want to sell, especially now, right? We're selling. Right. But what we want to do is, we want to make sure we're learning from this. It's like we have customers that are over automated. Maybe it was intentional or unintentional, right? It could be like, hey, this is what the customer asked for. We kind of told them, they said they want this and they want that. A good salesman knows, right? It's like, okay, if that's what you want. But I think it goes down to, making sure that we're transparent as well. So like, that's the sales part of it. And then for us, it's like, look, this is what you have. You're on a contract, a subscription service, whatever it is, even if they just bought it, it's like, they're going to have it 3-5 years. So this is what you have. I think it's important to highlight that front end piece, which is, hey, this might be too much automation for you. Okay, so it might be overkill, but this is how we can make it work, and kind of go through those steps. So internally, we're educating ourselves like, hey, this is how to deal with this type of situation. It goes back to sales, like, hey, this is kind of the things we need to talk about. But at the same time, it's the customer has it. So you don't want them to be dissatisfied because they bought too much, because 5 years, 10 years down the road, I think they're going to think, oh, this company, they sold me way too much, right? It's not going to come down to I bought too much. It doesn't come down to they sold me too
Of
much.
course.
So we want to make sure that we're being careful with that, but educating ourselves and the customer at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense. What about you, Ty? What have you?
I think sales is starting, like just at the very beginning of starting to change this. And I think customer success drives a really big portion of that, which is clients don't buy features and functions. Sales sells them features and functions, but what they buy is solutions, right? Yep. And when we focus on what are you trying to solve for versus look at this nice shiny button, right? Then we have better fits that come into the pipeline and we're able to be successful. The worst case scenario is for CS to pick up an account where everything they were promised, we're like, we can't do any of that, sorry. And we have to reset all expectations, right? The chance of renewal on that account is pretty low.
Right. Yeah. And that comes to, it's interesting because in the first chapter, the Jobs quote, of course, stood out to me very much, right? And he says, in essence, that like you don't need to sell them, like you got to start with their problem and you build the technology to solve the problem. You don't start with the features, the functions, the tech, and then say, hey, you need this, right? You have to start with that problem. So, well,
and also I think sales has been so focused on selling, and they're not really, and I get it, right? Like that's your job, but we don't really have a top-down culture which praises them when they turn down an account that's a terrible fit for the company, right? Like there's no incentive for them to do that. And that comes from the top down.
And that's a good point. I think that organizational culture has to be in line, from the top down. We have to get out of this mindset. Many organizations do this. We got to get out of this mindset that just sell it, whatever it is, just sell it. Here, sell it. You know what I mean? Like we got to get out of that because at the end it creates it's a sell today, but then fast forward 10 years down the road, they might tell everybody this is the worst. Why would they even try to sell me this? Like this is and that trickles down, right? Word of mouth counts for a lot, and that's a big problem. So excellent point, Ty. I mean, it should change, and sales should sell the solution, not the features and functionality behind it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how sales is going to change in terms of how they incentivize, right? Like how do you incentivize doing the right thing versus making the sale?
Right.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's interesting because if you think about, and there's a lot out there on the cost and the effort it takes to bring in a new customer is much higher than what it costs to renew a customer, right? So perhaps it's kind of relating to that renewal and that fit as well.
Good call.
What about, so, I love that you guys have talked about kind of educating and sharing successes and using those as opportunities to kind of get everyone aligned and seeing the value. Have you guys brainstormed other things that you haven't tried or that you would love to try that you think are like great ideas that you just, maybe it's even in working phase where you're like, oh, maybe if I could do this, I don't know. Anything that you've been chewing on as ideas that you haven't been able to implement?
Yeah. I mean, so the problem with strategy,
so go right ahead.
The problem with strategy, right, is it's constantly evolving, right? And we try things that don't work, and then we have to evaluate why. It's just a long process. But I find the place where I run into the same wall is particularly like the C-suite, particularly executives tend to be really like myopically focused on things like NPS scores, which are, I mean, they're vanity score at the end of the day, let's face it, right? Unless you do anything with the qualitative data, it just doesn't matter.
Right.
And trying to get the executives to see past that, that's, I think, where I've really struggled. Like, and I'll show them, here's an account that has incredibly high NPSs and they are about to churn, but you need to read, more than just a number to be able to get the context. So I mean, that's where I constantly try new strategies. And where, I certainly find a lot of the struggle. So I don't have an answer, but.
Well, and of course, that's the ideating, right? Anthony, do you feel like at your company, and it's interesting because I've read a few books in the space, and I know one of them, and the name isn't coming to mind, I'll share after the fact, but it talks so much about the need for alignment, and as we have talked about even earlier, top down, right? And so I think, Ty, you bring up a great point when you say C-suite is so focused on NPS, which is, this vanity mark. So what strategies, or Anthony, do you feel like you experience in your organization, is the C-suite aligned, or do you experience the same pushback? Because I read a lot of books that talk about the importance of it starting from the top down. If you don't have a C-suite, the people who are making decisions and the top level focused on that, then it is difficult for the whole organization to really adopt this as pivotal.
Sure. Yeah. The alignment is a big part of it. And I think all organizations, I mean, we're not immune to any of that, right? So we might have a very focused approach, but somewhere down the line, things go awry. You know what I mean? And I don't know, I wouldn't blame it on, at the top. I think it's up to all of us to push that forward. There was one graphic I saw one time where it was a big arrow going a certain direction, right? And it's like, this is where we all want to go. Like, really, I mean, we don't join an organization, we don't get involved so we can have it fail. We want it, our company, to be successful, right? So that in turn keeps us employed, and that obviously makes us better. But so we have this big arrow, that's where we're all trying to go. But then there's a bunch of arrows going this way, that way, this way, that way. And so it's causing friction within that bigger arrow, right, moving forward. And I think that's where a lot of us fall into. So the alignment behind all this is important. And I think that's up to, I don't want to say the C-suite, I think that's up to managers. I think that's up to managers, directors to kind of, we're involved with the day-to-day stuff. We might not be in the weeds of things, but, it's up to managers to make sure that we ingrain that culture. That we're talking to the other teams, that we're make sure that people are empowered to do different things, to drive that message, to drive that culture forward. Because all it takes is one sideload team to not be in sync, and the whole picture is ruined, right? The customer sees this as the organization is not well, not this team is not well. They don't separate that out. And the same thing goes with NPS. There's a lot of sentiment behind all these surveys. There's a lot of sentiment, and how you make me feel is a big part of it. My service tech might be awesome. He's great, but everything else is a mess, or, maybe it's the opposite. It's like the person I see, my service tech, is not the best. He's not a people person. So I'm going to relate my score based on that. That's what I think when I see this organization, this company.
And Laura, you said you worked in neuropsychology?
So I at a company called Immersion Neuroscience, and it's interesting talking about the NPS. We very much focus on real-time physiologic reactions to experiences, and using that as an objective measure next to some of these more subjective questions, right? And what I think of subjectivity, NPS being kind of a big part there.
So given your background, so we know, psychologically speaking, that when people are making decisions, they actually make an emotional decision before they make a logical decision, even if they don't know that they're doing that.
Yep, absolutely.
And I would honestly, if anyone ever does this research project, please let me know. I would honestly be curious to see if people who do particularly well in customer success are really good at reading like micro emotion. So it's the emotion you make before you know that you're making an emotional face. Because I think a lot of really good CS people pick up on that. And again, I think it's something it feels like intuition, right? Like I just know that they're frustrated, or I know that they're, before they've said anything.
Right. I do think it's interesting. I haven't seen research on that, but I do think from my experience in talking to various people who are in the customer success or CX field, it does seem like it is a unique fabric and breed of people who tend to really want to foster and build relationships. And this kind of comes back again to Anthony, when you say we don't want to be salesy. It's more about becoming the friend, and not. And it's funny because in reading the first chapter, they talk about the days of just being able to be friend are done, and that is true. We need the product to stand behind it. We need the value to be delivered. But I think it's interesting, and again, kind of in all of our fabric, that we inherently want to connect, and that leads us to look for different signals from people, to read into behaviors differently. So it's a really interesting thing. Yeah.
Do you have any?
I think it takes a bit to build up to it too. And so I guess my follow-up to that is, how mature are the folks on your CS team? Like, meaning, do you have like customer success managers that are, minimum 10 years in, right, in business? I mean, what does that look like for you?
For us, we are actually a startup, so we're fairly small. I
Yeah, I
lead
love
our team.
startups.
Yeah, we are. We're a small team. Been in business for a couple of years, and we are growing basically. So it is interesting, I think, and what we do probably now in the relationship building phase isn't necessarily something that will fully scale. But it is, I do think there's training probably that definitely builds into that, right? Experience on knowing what works and what doesn't in that relationship bonding, and depending on the type of client you're dealing with. But I do think, maybe it's coming from the psych background that I come from and the kind of neuroscience background, but I do think there is an interesting kind of, like I said, behavioral element that I know people that I work with who wouldn't want the same role, wouldn't enjoy the same kind of opportunity to listen and to help people achieve success and to help them work toward that.
There's also, this is going to sound really terrible. There's also artificial ways to kind of fast track that bonding. I mean, there's a really fast way, like through trauma bonding, right? Where, you find a really terrible scenario and, you create a quick win, and through that process, you create a really quick bond. And then there's like lots of little tricks, like stalking them. I know it sounds bad, but it's true, right? Like knowing what things they like to do in their spare time, where do they volunteer their time, where do they work before, what school do they go to, and all those like little tricks. I literally keep what I call a little black book of my clients, where I record stuff like, she seems to like colors, is that a llama, right? Like like stuff in their background, right? Or times they mention their birthday, and I catalog all that stuff and I use it to my advantage. Again, that sounds really callous, but
so stalking, is that what I should put on my notepad? Stalking.
Totally. Stalk.
Okay, here I go. Stalking.
I know it sounds bad, but it works.
No, I think you're right though. I think it's finding the way though to build that trusting relationship, right? And those types of things, when someone realizes that you care about them and their goals and beyond their goals, outside of, you care what they do outside of this job, I think that resonates a lot.
When you care about them holistically,
Agreed.
right? Like the pressures that they have. I honestly, one of the best successes I've ever had client-wise is being able to understand the pressures that they're like, when they call and they're angry, it's because someone's like, some pressure is happening to them at work, and be able to alleviate that stress. Like, hey, is that your boss yelling at you? Like, let me take that call so you can go deal with the actual problem. Being able to take those kind of weights off have been instrumental in building those bonds.
Absolutely. So I just want to do a time check really quick. We have about 3 minutes left, just so you guys know. What are there other, kind of things from the first chapter, or even thinking about shifting mindset, that you want to kind of throw on the table, chat about in the last 3 minutes? Other ideas?
The one thing that really I'm gonna copy and paste is gonna be the figure. Where is it? The graphic figure 1.1, 1.2, which is, the world customer revolves around the vendor.
Yes.
It's actually vendor around the customer. So to me, that was a good visual of how things, it's not, people have options, customers have options, and it's come to the point where it's like, well, I can get almost the same thing, minus 1 bell and 2 whistles over here, but they treat me better. You know what I mean? Or I have the money to spend more, right? It's not about cost. It's not about price anymore. I can spend more and actually go with this guy who's going to make me feel a lot better. You know what I mean? So it's changed. It's different. And I think that's what separates customer success is with other teams. It's like, hey, we're not, it's no agenda. It's true customer advocacy at its finest. You know what I mean? So it's like, I like that graphic. I'm going to use it. I don't care what Gainsight says. I'm going to use it.
So,
go ahead.
All right, good. I was going to say, I have an analogy that I really like to use for it, which is you land at the airport and you have to get home, right? You can take a taxi or you can take an Uber. Both are going to get you there. But chances are the market tells us that they're going to take the Uber for the sole reason of the experience. It's often more expensive, right? But it still gives you the same result. And the only difference is the experience from point A to point B.
Yep.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting. I think one thing that came to mind when you guys were talking about, again, relating your successes and stories through to the organization. I think that there's so much value in that. And one of the, again, I'll find you guys and share this other book that I'd read as well, that really talks about being the voice of the customer, right? So we are the ones who have the opportunity to be the voice of the wins, the maybe not wins, and being able to take those and build a story around it and actually putting a voice to it and saying, hey, Sally, who uses our health tech in this case, you know, these are the things that she loves and this is why she loves it, but also even building her out, right? And those types of things, I don't know if you guys are doing those types of things already, but that actually resonated to me when I read that book. It's like really building a persona and then voicing, you know, giving a voice to that persona to really help resonate with some of these different departments.
Yeah,
So,
that's a great idea.
something that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Well, we're at 33 seconds. It's been such a pleasure talking to you both today. I'm going to connect with you both. Hopefully you're okay with that on LinkedIn so that,
absolutely.
You know, and I hope that, you know, I hope you guys continue to join these. They're super fun. It's my first bookshop. I don't know if you guys have done anything like this, but
yeah, I like reading. It works out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a double win. It's a double win. I like it. Yeah. Well, we've got, I know, a few more sessions, you know, coming down the pipeline. So I hope I have the opportunity to moderate again and converse with you guys again.
Yeah, and I want to check out your
Laura,
company.
thanks.
How fun.
Great. Yeah, please do. Happy to chat offline about that too.
Yeah,
All right.
likewise.
Looks like we're being called back. It will close in 113 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and close this out so we can reconvene. And
Thanks,
we'll.
everyone.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Oh yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true. Okay, let's see.
Hi guys, any better now?
Yes!
Yay! I'm so
Adrian,
sorry
yay! Oh, Adrian, I'm so glad that you're able to join. I'm really
thanks for being patient with me.
Yeah, no problem. Thankfully, there are just the three of us, so we could. Yeah, so Adrian and I worked together at IFS, and Adrian had reached out to me for what, I forget why. I guess it had something to do with, like, you saw like a lot of stuff that I was posting and you wanted to see some of the, you know, get some ideas on how to roll out customer success in the UK for IFS, that kind of thing, right? And then very shortly thereafter, you know, I bounced. I'm no longer with IFS anymore. I'm actually going to be starting my my own customer success practice, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
And, I'm in planning mode right now, so I'm really excited about it.
Okay, so I mean that's great to hear. My reasons for reaching out still stand the same, but actually we're on a big transformation journey at the moment. We're going through consolidating our professional services and support organizations and building out a new global customer success team. So all those questions that I was asking you a few months back, they're extremely relevant right now.
Yeah, exactly. And then were you able to read the first chapter?
Yep. I've not long finished the whole book, so yeah, great read.
Good. Okay, great. So there's kind of like a couple of different phases that they talked about in the book. So phase one was like making stuff. So to quote from the book, the first phase of the economy, making stuff, products were novel. For example, kind of the horse and buggy, moving towards kind of the Henry Ford Model T cars. So I would say in making stuff, there's more of a focus on manufacturing and industry, or if you're creating an entire new category, product, service that's never been seen before. So I want to kind of talk about some potential challenges, because I know that's kind of actually where John is at with his business that he's in the midst of working on. And then we can kind of share ideas on kind of how to help each other. And then phase two is selling stuff. So in the book it says, then the economy shifted to selling with lots of choices. The challenge was finding what you wanted. So neighborhood retail, telesales, catalogs, online shopping, Instacart, mobile, and you know, selling stuff is no longer a differentiator. So I would say for phase 2 on selling stuff, the focus is on more on product features and unique ways to shop and sell. And then the third phase is where I kind of think IFS is at, Adrian. You know, there's these 3 phases. Right now, you're kind of in the mode of selling stuff, right? Like we've been, I can't say we, but IFS has been inundated by salespeople selling, but we weren't ready at that time to be able to deliver the way that we really needed to. And so you're kind of in that transition from selling stuff to now this third phase, which is delivering outcomes. And that's really where we kind of want everybody to go and what the Customer Success Economy book is about. So to quote the book, it says, with infinite choices in products and infinite ways to buy, the scarce commodity is now the customer. So making sure the customer is successful isn't just a job or strategy, it's truly the economy. So, and all of these quotes are from page 9 and 10 from that first chapter. So I kind of think of delivering outcomes is by kind of focusing on proactive delivery of value and the customer's desired outcomes. One of the potential challenges is, you know, that there could be no standardized way to capture, track, and achieve a customer's desired outcomes, as an example. But I know at IFS, you know, what those challenges have been in that transition. But, you know, I really want you to be able to kind of share yourself. So let's talk about those. You know, if you're currently transitioning from either making stuff, selling stuff, or delivering outcomes, what are some of those challenges that you're having right now, so that we can kind of have you know, something that we can discuss as a group and try and solve together?
Sure. So do you want to go first, John?
Go ahead. So I think because you and Dana are kind of on the same page, I'm just
Okay.
kind of diving into this from a business I've been working on in the Netherlands for a little while. So
okay. So where we're at, I mean, we are first and foremost an enterprise software vendor. And we've come from the position of a lot of big software organizations where we've had a perpetual licensing model, on-premise software, and we're moving into software solutions on the cloud, but very much moving towards a subscription-first licensing model, which drives that notion that, look, where we've been able to operate in the past is that we can sell the software to a customer, maybe help them implement, and then pretty much leave them to it, let them figure out how they extract value from the solution. Maybe we've got a reactive model where if they need support, they call technical support, and that's probably about the end of the engagement to all intents and purposes. Now you move to this model where they don't have such a significant upfront investment, and you've got to continually sell the value back into them. So that's meaning that we're having to have a huge change of mindset first and foremost within the organization. Say, actually, we've got to start acting differently. And whereas we've probably been able to operate in different functional silos at time, because sales did their bit, implementation services did their bit, technical support did their bit, in this new economy where you're focused on continually delivering value, you've got to make sure that those experiences are much more joined up. So it means that we're having to integrate the functions much more than we ever did. And that's a challenge because some people don't necessarily get the reasons why we need to do that just yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I know right now you guys are a pretty matrixed organization as well. So that is making it difficult to get everybody to align on kind of a one company approach. So, okay, well, let's talk about that. What is one challenge that you in particular are dealing with that that you would like some help on, that maybe we can brainstorm you know, some ideas? Or if you've come up with some solutions already, then what are those? Let's talk about those, because we're going to be sharing these takeaways as a group on a blog post later. So I want to make sure that we have some key takeaways, whether we brainstorm them together or if you've come up with some already, that'd be great too.
Mhm. So I think fundamentally we're in some ways we're kind of starting from scratch with customer success. You know, we've always been very well intentioned around our customers, but I don't think we've necessarily had the structure in place to deliver that sort of lifetime value to customers. It's been a bit reactive and a bit piecemeal. I suppose it's how to sort of build a structure that is going to support that kind of ongoing engagement with customers, that is going to be able to pull in the relevant resources and people that you need at a point in time when the customer needs it. And I suppose making sure that you've got someone responsible for that overarching relationship with the customer. That clearly one person can't do it all on their own. They've got to be able to rely on back office teams to support them, but that person understands what it is that the customer's trying to achieve, why they've purchased the software in the first place, and how we go about delivering the outcome that they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I saw that you were kind of challenged with when we talked is, you know, you had kind of created that deck on, you know, ways to be able to share how support slash customer success would work. How is that going? Because I do know that, you know, the challenge that I had at IFS was being able to, you know, like you said, that one company approach. So one of the things that I tried to solve while I was there is by bringing along our business unit to the greater customer success group and staying there. So not creating our own things, right? Everybody's kind of creating their own things at IFS. So one of the solutions that I started to employ is, you know, working with the business transformation team, working with Matilda in customer engagement, working with Matt Kempson, because there were kind of multiple initiatives that were going on. There was several different types of implementation initiatives, you know, rolling out this select and success offerings. And I felt like the only way that you're going to be able to transition to delivering outcomes as opposed to playing catch up is to align with those groups and socialize those ideas, you know, within the organization. That's really what I was kind of trying to do. That was kind of the solution that I employed. What's been, you know, some of the things that you've done?
And so we're definitely still moving in that direction. I suppose what's interesting when I look at things from an IFS perspective versus when I read about customer success in a lot of other companies is that currently it's a paid for model. So it's almost like a premium service. So those select and success offerings where we do have this concept of a customer success manager working towards outcomes with the customer. It is a paid for model, but we want to get to the point where all of our customers are ultimately advocates. So how do we sort of bake that customer success notion into everything that we do, and it's not just reserved for a subset of customers? So at the level we were talking, Dana, we'd introduced kind of a premium support service, which is our platinum support model, where we have kind of a customer success manager light, if you like, who has regular touch points and does quarterly business reviews, if you like, but very much geared around the value of the support service to the customer. And those are working really well. These individuals are building good relationships with the customer, but the risk that we've got at the moment, what we're finding is that those people are kind of turning into, a lot of their role is more reactive than proactive at the moment. They're kind of firefighters. They're there as a kind of, it's a white glove support service rather than actually moving towards understanding what the customer's trying to achieve and being more focused on sort of proactive interventions that can support that. It's still a little bit, we're on the back foot and we're reacting to challenges that the customers have.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I do remember you guys had that, and I thought that was a really good approach. You know, to be able to have different paid customer success services. So it was like the solution that IFS kind of put together was encompassing, it was support, professional services and kind of account management, right? So it was like
Yeah, that's a fair summary.
services, support, success, and then account management, I think, was success. It was kind of that account management portion, right? So that was your kind of premium support light. So having one leader that oversees several different functional groups, I think is a great strategy that I think IFS employed, so that you can start to standardize and make it a little bit easier to actually start delivering the outcomes to the customers, because you are forced now to have one approach because you're all rolled up to Paul, right? VP of like customer success and business transformation. Would you agree with that? I felt like that was a really good solution that they've been employing.
Yeah, and I think we're sort of evolving that now, where, as I say, we've got pretty much, well, everyone who operates in a support role, everyone who operates in a consulting services role, we're bringing those organizations together to remove the functional silos that we have. But now we're actually building a net new global customer success function on top. And I'm part of a work stream to try and define some of that, which is exciting. It's new, and it's obviously something that we've needed for a long time to bridge some of the gaps that we've had.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So anything else about that, John? I mean, I know this is such a new space for you. So Adrian, just so that you know, John and I have been friends for, gosh, almost 20 years. I feel so old. He has a business mindset, very smart engineering degree. He's owned his own engineering firm, and has started to and worked in the Netherlands with a kind of a brain institute for people that have traumatic brain injuries, and kind of coming up with ways to help those people be able to get healthy, right? Yeah. So I wanted John to be a part of this conversation, because John and I'm thinking about us kind of going into business together for my CS practice. And what he's dealing with right now with rolling out Move the Brain into the United States is kind of more going from this making stuff, right, where there's a lot of white space. This is something that's never been done before. There's not really a category for it. So John, do you want to kind of talk about like one of the biggest challenges that you're kind of struggling with to be able to transition from nobody knowing what it is that you're providing? And then let's see if Adrian and I might be able to come up with some ideas to kind of help you move from that into, more delivering outcomes and finding the right target market.
Yeah, so I actually really enjoyed that first chapter of the book, just kind of diving into this whole concept. Most of my business mindset and process in the past has been really focused on, really the first one phase, the phase one, the new product concept, or the second phase is kind of finding better customers and upselling your product, right? And kind of, I guess for me, the big transition really has to do with, as we're creating a new industry, right? We not only have to bring awareness to something, we're essentially creating something completely new. We're bringing essentially the automotive to the horse and buggy world in our industry. And so in a lot of ways, we just have this wide open white space of just run and create and just let people become aware of your product. But the big product problem I was having in the Netherlands when I was living there, I actually, just so you know, Adrian, I just moved back about a month ago from the Netherlands. I've been living there for the last year and a half, 2 years, was what the book was talking about in terms of how do we define success? How do we kind of come up with an idea of how do we measure this? Being an engineer, and I like math, I like structure, I like math, I like matrix, I like to quantify something, kind of make sure we're all on the same page. And that's the big product. That's the big problem I'm having in terms of how do we define success start to finish with the client? How are we measuring that? And are we actually creating that vision with the client so that they're bought into what success looks like? I know when I'm looking at software companies, I'm looking at software, I'm looking at for email, I'm looking for management software systems. There always seems to be this big push for sell you the product, get you to the onboarding group, or they have the specialty group getting you on board for it, and then kind of just dump it on you to find your own measure of what's meaningful in it for you, right? And I feel like in a lot of ways, the business we're creating right now in the Netherlands, we're kind of doing the same thing. We're saying, hey, here's what we offer. Phase 2 is, do we do well selling you the service? Great. We've done our job and we walk away, right? And it's kind of like how do we take that to the next level of creating that model of success, creating that model of a measurable, quantifiable, buying them into the corporate mindset of, or their own version of success so that we can actually meet that goal. And being a new business, we don't have enough customers yet to really understand what their success is, but I would imagine that probably is very similar to what you guys are doing with at IFS. And a little bit I know about what you just kind of told me, how you guys defining that success, how does that look like to actually create that success model and then be able to measure that. Did I hear what you guys are talking about and relate that to my business well? Is that similar?
Very, yeah. Go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, so I think, fundamentally, I suppose it always comes back to why is the customer purchasing your product or your service? And then maybe thinking a bit deeper than that, inquiring with the customer or trying to research in the background, what does success look like for their organization? What are their goals? Are they trying to grow? Are they trying to optimize? Are they trying to be more efficient? And then what measures do they look at internally that are going to help them understand whether they've been successful in that? And then tying in, well, how does your product or service actually support those particular business initiatives that they've got? And then I suppose the more difficult part is how do you sort of quantify that? How do you put metrics against that? How much of an impact is your product or service over time having on those initiatives that they're driving? But I suppose that's where it starts. It's understanding what does success look like for them, what are the initiatives that you can impact through your product or service, and then trying to tie that into some sort of measures that you both agree on.
Yeah.
Yeah, agreed, Adrian. I think definitely, the model of, trying to, and I think I've shown that to you, John, right? The deck that I've created that kind of shows, first determining, what your value proposition is, the purpose, kind of your overarching purpose for why you've created this product, and then the desired outcome that you are promising your customers to have at a super high level. So I don't know if you remember that I think I had sent it to you. I don't know, and I'm not sure if I'm able to share it. Let me see. Let's look for. And I think I even showed this to you also, Adrian. Let's see. No, I don't think it was that. No, it was, let's do immersion. Let's do, customer success. Here we go, group worksheet. Okay, and I don't know how to incorporate this. I think I have to put it in the deck, right? Because if I put it on this screen, you can't see it, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, because I just put it, because I think,
Okay.
I think it needs to be all in one. Okay, so let me see if I can just stick this in the deck. It's not going to be pretty, but let me just put it right here. Yeah, okay. So let's see if it's going to be there now. No. Oh, wait, here we go. Go to Dana's breakout. Let's see. There we go. Okay. So this is like something, and I think I had shared this with you, Adrian, as well. So this is kind of like a framework to kind of get started when you're trying to figure out how the heck to start customer success. So, you know, and I have group exercises and stuff, so I'd be happy to share it with you, John, or go over it. But, you know, first, you know, gaining some clarity of purpose on, you know, why you're doing this. You know, what it is that you're going to be kind of communicating to, you know, your target market. What is a desired outcome for your customers? Like, it has to be something really short and sweet and powerful. Like, remember when we were talking to Immersion Neuro Paul yesterday, and he had something about like simplifying neuroscience to provide a kick-ass life or something, right? Something that's going to resonate with customers. And then your value proposition. So once you kind of understand that, and there's exercises, then you start looking at like what your business goal is. And if you're a small company, then, you know, starting out, then it's really usually about mitigating churn, meaning you can finally get people interested if you're, you know, a startup, but people leave very, very easily because they're not getting the value they want. So, and that's typical. So early stage startups are mitigating churn. Mid stage, it's all about growth. And then very mature, like, you know, the DMBs and GEs of the world, it's all about keeping the customers that they have. And then you want to start looking at kind of like some segmentation models. You could do it anyway, right? It could be contract value, it could be white space, it could be by industry, it could be by region, but I really think that's not a great way to segment your customers, because from that segmentation, you're going to create an engagement model of a high, mid, and low touch, right? And so here's some examples of what those are. And then there's kind of the customer journey that you have to create. And there's like a pre-sales journey and then a post-sales journey. And from that, once you've defined that, you know, it goes from interest to research, conclude, then they select you. Post-sale is all about discovering, realizing, you know, commanding and understanding of what it is that you're offering and getting the most out of it, so on and so forth. And then creating the life cycle stages and activities. So this is just really, really quick, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I think maybe you and I can get together, John, and kind of talk a little bit more about that. But I think starting somewhere with that so that you can at least move from the horse and buggy to at least first creating a framework that is customer focused first might be helpful. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Adrian, John? Agree, disagree, what's missing? What would you add?
For me, that absolutely makes sense. And that's the exercise I've been going through over the last couple of months, building out a segmentation model for our customer base. Currently, the way that we're doing it to make sure that we've got alignment with our sales and marketing organization is we're doing it based on total revenue of the target company. So we've got our installed base segment, and we've also got target prospects as well. And then we've got our life cycle model. Then we've got a proposed journey map. The other thing I've layered in there is moments of truth along the journey to try and say, well, what are the critical moments along this journey? When's the customer going to be judging us? And what proactive interventions do we put in place there? So I think we've got the makings of a customer journey plan, and then it's sort of taking that and translating it into an individual customer's requirements. So yeah, that's the approach that we've taken so far.
Great, great. And then John, what are your thoughts on that? It's a lot to digest. You know nothing about customer success, only what we've kind of brainstormed when I've come and visit you, but that's about it. Any of this resonate? What questions do you have?
Yeah, it's actually, there's a lot that resonates, and there's still a lot of terms I hear both you guys using as I'm getting up to speed on these things that I'm just over here taking notes on. Like, hey, I need more information on this, I need more information on that. I like,
Totally. Yeah.
but that's
And
also why I'm here.
I'll help you with that for sure. You know, you're
Up
one
to
of my
speed
good
on
friends, so it's no problem. It is a
no,
lot
I
to
think,
take in.
yeah, and I appreciate both you guys' input, listening to what Adrian's saying, what they're doing and how they're approaching it, as well as you. I'm just kind of putting those two together. And so I think just kind of determining what my segmentation models are going to look like is probably the thing I've just taken most notes on right here. Like, hey, I need to define what the segmentation model is going to look like. How am I going to break this up for each of our various types of clients, so that I actually know that we're working with the right clients, but then also that those clients we do take on, that we're actually measuring the right components with those individuals. So
Yeah. And you know, also there is, and I'll share this in hold on, I'm going to share this with everybody in the group in our box, but here I want to show you this. Let's see. Yeah, business model canvas, dashboard. It's how to create a startup, and I've actually been using it, and it's been you know, outrageously helpful. So let me just take a quick screenshot. We've got 2 more minutes. Let me take a screenshot of this. Or actually, I think I can put this. You guys might be able to pull it up yourself in the chat. Let's see. Chat. There it is. Okay. So, and okay, let's see. Everyone. So I think if you guys can just open that. But that's something that I can share with everybody. But basically, you know, because I'm creating my own startup, a new customer success practice, there's actually a course that this guy provides on how to create a startup, and it's really easily digestible and super, super helpful. So I would really recommend it, John, for you to kind of go through. Let me see, and then I'll put this one in the chat. There it is. So I think this is like, all right, cool. So we've just got 1 minute. They're going to be pushing us back into the next room. So when we go in there, once we're all back in as a group, write down what kind of your main key takeaway was that you felt was the most helpful in this conversation. And then whether it was a resource or an idea you guys gave each other, and then I will, as a moderator, just kind of go over them with everybody a little bit about what we talked about. So I would say for John, the key takeaway is the starting from scratch, going from, you know, the horse and buggy to creating a target market and all of that. And so this idea of creating a framework to start with, to be able to fill things in, is kind of something that I think would be really a good takeaway for you. What would you agree, disagree?
no, I would agree. I think that pretty well sums up what I was thinking about and talking about in terms of the transition from that all the way to the success model, right? The client success model kind of start to finish approach, rather than focusing on one individual segment at a time and growing the business from one segment to the next segment on through. So I think that sums it up pretty well, Dana.
Good.
I'll type something like that up.
Yeah, so let's see. Okay, so we're about to leave. Don't leave yet. And then for Adrian, in terms of kind of the challenges that you've had, you know, we talked about, you know, the fact that you guys have kind of put everything. I think a key takeaway the group would really like is that you guys have kind of put everything under one umbrella, you know, so that everything kind of rolls down. And then, you know, right now you're struggling through, some of the ways that you can help your customers. And so what you've done is kind of that premium support light, where you're doing some quarterly business reviews, something that while you're doing that transition, you're at least getting, providing some value as your company is transitioning. But I think what will really resonate and be a great takeaway for everybody is that you guys are trying to put everything kind of under one roof and under one management, so there's kind of one source of truth. Mm-hmm. Would you agree that would be valuable to the group?
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely correct and a fair summary, and yeah, hopefully that will be of value to the others.
Great. Okay, cool. All right, so we can go back. We can say leave breakout room. I think you guys have something that you can do that with, right?
Yeah, there's a little pop-up.
Yeah. So just click that, and we'll go back to the group now.
And then we'll just type it in the group Zoom chat.
Yeah, type in what your kind of key. It doesn't have to be what I said, but I'm trying to think of what I'm going to say to the group. But you write what you think your best takeaway.
All right, and so what I want to do first, I want to introduce myself, and then I want to just kind of go through an icebreaker. So we have about 10 minutes for the icebreaker, and then I guess the remainder of the time we can go ahead and jump into our session. So again, I'm Rick Suber. I am actually brand new at my company currently. This is actually day number 4 for me at Oracle. Previous to Oracle, I was actually at Comfy, which is a subsidiary of Siemens. And in both companies, I actually serve as a senior customer success manager. The specific title at Oracle that I have, because I'm sure as we all know within this field, there are various titles. My internal, title is service delivery manager, but for all intents and purposes, customer success manager within a division of Oracle, within their utilities kind of branch. But that being said, I did want to kind of go through an icebreaker. So the first thing I would like everybody to do is, of course, give me their name. Also, what company and position they currently have, if any. And then third, either give me your favorite binge-worthy show or an interesting fact about yourself. All right. So again, your name, your company, and position, and an interesting fact or your favorite binge-worthy show. So I think I'm going to start with Ray, since everybody else was picking on you
no pressure, right?
in the larger session. So Ray, why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Ray Rauch, Escondido, California. I work at Kariba. I'm the vice president of client success. And I don't know, this is a not suitable for work show that I've been watching on Netflix, but I just can't get enough of it. Is Shameless. They've got 10 seasons and I just started watching it. I mean, it is, I can't in good conscience recommend it because it probably will offend people, but it is, to me, it's like, I constantly watch and like, why am I still watching this show? It's so awful, but I like it. So.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And this is a great way for us to also share TV show recommendations. So yes. That's great. I'll have to check out Shameless. All right. And I'm just going to move right along from left to right on my screen. So next I see Jennifer Patton. So Jennifer, if you don't mind sharing.
Yes. So Jennifer Patton in Lake Forest, California. I work for MavenLink. My title is Senior Manager of Client Success. And binge-worthy show is very tough. I love Shameless as well. I'm a big fan of that show. I guess I'll share what I'm watching right now, which is a really big variety of shows. I'm watching that organizing show, The Home Edit. Any other fans? And then I'm also really into science fiction type shows. So I'm watching this show called Cursed, which is like a different King Arthur type story, which is really interesting. So yeah, looking forward to show recommendations, especially during this work from home time.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jennifer. Appreciate that. All right. And next on my list is Jill Williams. So Jill, if you don't mind sharing.
Customer success for Seismic Software. I am based in Encinitas, California. So I also guilty pleasure, shameless. Started season 10 recently. It's like a train wreck. It's fantastic, but just subscribe to Hulu this week. So I am currently binging The Handmaid's Tale. I read the book years and years ago. My husband has not read the book, so he's just like, "What are you watching?" Like, he just thinks it's the strangest thing ever. But I'm totally hooked. Staying up way too late at night watching it. I imagine I'll be blowing through it in the next couple of days here. So
that's a great one. I love Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. And next up we have Eshwar, and I'm not going to attempt your last name, but if you don't mind, please share with us.
Yeah, so I'm a customer success manager at Cubo. We provide a data platform. It's a startup in the Bay Area, but I'm based in Irvine, California. And so actually, I got into customer success and software industry like a year ago. So before that, I was in hardware. So it's been very interesting and jumping in a startup data platform. I mean, it's excitement every day. Shows. Yeah, we are like there's too much streaming. There's so much competition. You know, you subscribe to Verizon, you get this. You buy an Apple device, you get this. Anyway, mine is Prime, Amazon Prime, The Boys. It's like superheroes, and yeah, that's season 2 was great. Season 1 was great. Season 2 is so. And then Netflix, I actually watching Dexter. Is the serial killer, and it's really old. It's fun to, it's on Showtime. It's fun to watch it now with the time, like it's all 15 years ago or 10 years ago. I mean, it's exciting. You know, I like thrillers, you can tell. Some action, violence, thrillers.
Awesome. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I started watching The Boys as well. So I think they're on season 2 now, right?
Season 2, yeah.
Season 2, yeah. So all great shows, great recommendations. So maybe this is another takeaway I can bring back to the general room as well. So thank you for sharing. And I realized I didn't share, I guess, my favorite binge-worthy show. So I have a guilty pleasure for both Naked and Afraid and 90 Day Fiance. I'm horrible. And then also The Boys as well. So I jumped into The Boys relatively recently. So all good shows. So thank you so much, everyone, for sharing all of that. And I want to know, I guess just by a show of hands, who has had a chance to read through chapter 1 of the Customer Success Economy? All right. So just about everyone. So, and just kind of to set the stage, I'm sure we're all familiar with Gainsight and Nick Mehta, and of course the role that he plays in our community. One of I think the main underpinnings of chapter 1 in this book is the fact that the whole field of customer success has changed. Even while customer success has been a thing, even the past, I would say even this year, we've seen a lot of changes in terms of how we're positioning with respect to COVID. And so what I'd actually like to do is I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to stay on one particular slide. And let me know if you guys can see that. Can you guys see that? Okay, great. So essentially what we're talking about in this particular breakout is to talk about customer-focused solutions. So obviously I've seen it. I actually saw it at the company where I have just transitioned from. Obviously COVID has threw a lot of us, kind of a wrench. And I've seen that in some instances, I would say maybe 20 to 30% of the customer success professionals that I've spoken with, a few of them have actually seen that, they've been able to position very, very quickly and very well, and their business is actually on an uptick. But the majority of folks that I've actually spoken with, and this is not at all scientific, but many of them have said that their businesses have actually been far more challenging. Revenue has suffered. A lot of clients, are at least considering churning or kind of weaning. But I would like to, I just kind of open it up to everyone to see if anyone can provide some sort of a real life example or challenge. It could be COVID or not, that you've experienced wherever you're working at right now. And whether or not that has to do with, perhaps, focusing too much on selling, or maybe you haven't differentiated your products amongst your competition. But I just kind of want to open up the discussion to see if anybody had some immediate things that they'd like to share around this.
I'll go. I guess our business is in treasury management. So a lot of our business is focused on, moving, protecting, and growing cash for billion-dollar plus companies. And actually we've seen more growth and more people leaning in. Being a SaaS solution, we're accessible everywhere. So it was a chance for us to shine on the fact that we work with treasurers and cash managers, that they were able to go home and get all the same access and have all the same value in using our tool and our platform that they had, that they would have expected from having the office environment. So we've sort of been a little bit more of like it's not a blessing by any stretch of the imagination, but it really hasn't affected us. It has affected some of our customers. So, some customers obviously in different spaces have been affected. And so we've had a number of clients come in with requests for economic relief, delayed payments, longer terms. And so churning through that has been interesting. For me, really the challenge that I've had has been more around CSM being tasked with a lot of stuff that was off mission for us prior to the confinement. And so I find myself pulled into a lot of compliance conversations, a lot of rewriting of customer communications, because we're trying to be over communicative in this time so that we're staying visible. And that's really stressed an already pretty thin team. And it's actually made us sort of pull focus away from the things like renewal readiness, value delivery, like the things that are really core to CS, to a healthy CS practice. So that's been, I don't know if that's just specific to our company, but it was weird that it didn't happen all at once, but I found that I was getting more and more of these emails and Zoom calls where it's like, oh, well, people rationalizing, well, that's client success. So you should do that. If they're not compliant, then they're not successful. So you should own that too. And it's just sort of snowballed, and it's become, a huge pull of focus and a huge challenge. But
so overall focus has been an issue for you.
Yeah.
Overall, just in terms of being pulled into a lot of meetings, obviously, this is a huge positioning play and something that we haven't seen. I think the word of the year so far is unprecedented. So
yes, yeah,
everywhere.
Like I'm being asked to write customer communications for a lot of other teams. Like, support will call and say, can you write this communication? We want to offer enhanced support. And we had always been in the editorial workflow where we had the final say on look and feel, making sure it was on brand, making sure it wasn't offensive, or, it wasn't going to offend some of our customer base and come back as a customer sat issue. And increasingly, it's sort of like we get the broad strokes of an outline from somebody in compliance, and they'll say, hey, I need to send out an update on this, security certification. Can you write it? Here are the bullet points. And so I've learned a lot more about topics that I had no knowledge of going into this, things like multi-factor authentication and all sorts of stuff. But, and we're relatively new to Gainsight. Like I've implemented it 3 times at 3 different companies, but we just went live in March. And so we are increasingly relying on tech-led touches and a lot of automated touches, because I've got in North America, I've got 2 CSMs and 800 customers. I have a lot bigger team in France and in Europe, and the UK. But here in the US, like we have to get massive force multipliers in order to reach and stay in front of, 800 customers, essentially 400 each. So,
wow. Huge customer base.
Yeah, 2,600 globally, but 800 in the US.
Wow, that's impressive.
Do you think that there's more heightened focus communication because the other departments are more sensitive to how people are going to react during this time?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sensitivity because we're not on site. Our PS is all delivered over the wire, and you know how context is lost in emails. And I mean, video can carry us a certain amount, and we're all doing a lot of Zoom lately. I have one tomorrow that's like literally 7:30 until 5. You know, but when absent that, I think you just lose a lot of the context of that human touch and the more, like, you know, for us, high revenue enterprise businesses, they want us to be on site. And so, and I think people are really sensitized right now too. I think this is a bizarre psychological experiment where we're all, like, you know, confined in our own little bubbles, and the impact this has on us as very social animals is sort of fascinating and horrifying at the same time, because I can see the deterioration in my team, in my clients, in the contacts that I have, that the stress is not insignificant. So I think that's led to this more reliance on being super careful that there's 7 approval steps for every communication that goes out, because we don't want to offend anyone, and everyone's sort of on pins and needles and really sensitive. And it's an interesting time. And it's not just the pandemic. I think it's, you know, our political culture is really polarized. It's just so many things at once that have really lent to it.
All right. What are some of the other challenges that other folks have seen, and what have you kind of done to kind of position yourself for success in driving customer outcomes? Anyone else? Or what are some things that are going well that you can as well?
I can share some current challenges that I've had. So I'd like to blame them on COVID, but I don't know that COVID's to blame for a lot of it. So it's similar to Ray. You know, our business, I think, is, you know, we're fortunate in the fact that we have an enterprise software solution that made it pretty easy for people transitioning from the office to home environments. We're enterprise content management and sales enablement solution. So we're well positioned to sort of weather this storm that we're in. A lot of our clients, again, kind of similar to Ray, have been hard hit by this. So we're getting interesting requests about, you know, different billing terms and renewals we are finding that some of our current renewals are a little bit more hard won than they have been historically. So historically, we've had kind of through the roof customer retention, and we've been very fortunate in the numbers of clients that are renewing. This year, our numbers are starting to look very different, and that may be due to the nature of the world we're living in, and it also is likely due to just kind of where we are as a business and our growth and our scale. And unfortunately, a lot of the churn falls within my team. So I've had to do a lot of self-reflection on what's happening with my current set of clients, what's happening with the way that my team is engaging with clients. You know, how have we changed as a business? How have our clients evolved during that time? And what can we do to really figure out how we can better serve our clients? And whether that's a combination of just the relationships we have with different levels within the organization, the product support that if these clients have been around for 3 years and the product has evolved, but maybe they haven't kept up with the product innovation, within their individual client tenants. And so various challenges that I've been reflecting on, and just kind of thinking through, where I am in my career in customer success and where we are as a business, and would love to get thoughts from the group of have any of you experienced similar kind of aha moments of, oh, wow, I'm not having the right conversations with the right people, or challenges with, in working with your product teams. Maybe there's a bit more of a focus on product enhancement requests from pre-sales versus from clients that have been around a while. So I think there was some of that as well. So I'd love to just open it up to the group for thoughts on any of that.
Yeah, does anybody have any ideas for Jill? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yes, I'm definitely relating to a lot of the challenges that you're mentioning. So MavenLink, we're a SaaS platform. We've been moving more up market, and what you were saying about having clients who've been with you for 3 years and really needing to evolve in how they're using your system, that's a big challenge for us. So one thing that we've focused on recently is trying to have a workshop where we can analyze how a client is using our system and offer some quick wins right then and there, and then recommend services or maybe that they shift the way they're thinking about our software in that call. And so that's been something that we've offered free of charge on some of our more at-risk renewals. That's been really helpful so far. What you said about the COVID requests and renewals being tougher than ever, that is a big challenge for us as well. We found that most of our clients our smallest clients are more likely to go out of business and need to leave because of that. But we're doing really well in retaining logos. It's hard to retain dollars because you have these companies that have cut 10 to 15% of their workforce. And so that's been a challenge, trying to retain the dollars on each renewal. And it sounds like you're dealing with that as well. So we've been trying to focus more on partnering with clients for future growth, and trying to get creative with things like, I know Ray, you mentioned earlier, you're getting the payment deferral requests with COVID. That's a way that we've tried to be a little bit more creative to give people immediate relief, and then try to focus on long-term. We're hopeful that the economy will improve and your business will grow, and you'll be set up with our software for that journey. So those are some ideas that we've been working on.
I love that idea about that kind of site assessment or whatever, however you guys are branding it internally. Is that something that you're partnering with your professional services group on, or is that really something that's very CSM led?
Yeah, so it's actually led, we're very lucky in that we had one of our really seasoned consultants move over to sales and solution consulting. So we're actually making it a function of our solutions consulting. We've shifted as an organization. You were talking about the pre-sales versus post-sales. We used to focus more on pre-sales, and now that team focuses on prospects and clients. So we've been able to use basically a sales resource. We have the benefit that he was a consultant for several years for our company.
Yeah.
So he's been the one primarily leading that, and then we'll bring in other resources as appropriate. It's obviously, it's kind of, I always go back to like the fitness examples. You can work with a personal trainer for a couple of hours, but unless you're committed to actually making a change and investing from there, I think it's really hard to see for clients to see the results that they're looking for unless they have that commitment and willingness to change.
Yes, but that free personal training session gets the
the
paperwork signed for the gym membership.
Exactly.
So I like that.
Really, really good suggestion and great question. I know at the company that I transitioned from, I think when we started to see a lot of the changes that were happening as a result of COVID, we actually put out a survey to our entire portfolio. And these questions, we started to kind of do it, through email, but then we decided, it would be best conducted via phone or via Zoom. And in these surveys, these are basically voice of customer surveys where we were asking, how has COVID affected you? And then we started to ask more specific questions around our product offering. What could we do better? And through a lot of those surveys came some pretty interesting insights, and it led to us repositioning a lot of what we've been doing, and we shared a lot of those insights with our product team. So it kind of did drive a bit of the direction of the company. So I'm not too sure what your role is insofar as your interaction with your marketing folks, but they played a huge role in helping us with that survey and driving those results.
That's cool.
Also send that survey through Gainsight.
Yeah.
Yeah. We actually sent a voice of the customer survey through Gainsight recently too.
Oh, awesome.
In a similar way. Rick, did you find that has there been a shift in how clients were using the software with COVID? Did you notice anything earth-shattering?
Yes. And again, this is my previous company, but yes, so I worked at Comfy. And so Comfy does a lot insofar as affecting employee experience. So for instance, being able to book a desk, booking a room, adjusting temperature in a given space. And one of the main ways that I saw a lot of customers changing was with respect to desk booking. So obviously, as companies were deploying away from the office and starting to redeploy back to the office, they were thinking about spatial seating. And maybe instead of booking every desk, they would book every other desk or every third desk. And just trying to find ways, how can you cordon off certain areas so that no one can sit in those seats? Or if someone uses a desk, can there be some time where that desk is not occupied to allow, janitorial services to go in there and sanitize those areas? So learning a lot about what those customers wanted to see and some of the things that they were thinking about, we started to provide that feedback back to our product team, and they started to build in those buffers and started to make a lot of those changes. So right around the time that I left the company last month, actually, a lot of those changes were being put into place in our product or on our platform.
Very cool.
Very good. All right, cool. Anything else, just in terms of any other challenges you guys have seen, and maybe not even within your own purview, but anything that you've seen, industry-wide?
Yeah, I can share. So the customer focused solution from my end.
Mm-hmm.
So when I joined Qbol, I had like about 15 customers. So there was one customer had a platform stability issue, and there was a unique issue only for that customer, the way that environment was set up. So it's something if there is any kind of issue, they'd be affected more. So none of the other customers are impacted. So I had to, as a CSM, handle a lot of root cause analysis, RCAs, after. So every time I used to stress to our own team that, hey, you fix this, make our platform more stable, it's going to benefit all the other customers, even though they're not complaining, but it's impacting user experience.
Sure.
So that kind of, our team heard that, and a lot of focus and a lot of late nights trying to work on RCAs. I remember the startup, so working with RCA, late night with the CTO, like, he's editing and giving it to me, and then I'm like, no, this is not good enough. So I'm giving it back, it's just, we turn things around. The platform is more stable. This customer, we're able to retain this customer, and a small upsell. The account is kind of red. We just now spoke about turning it yellow. So turning it around because it's a customer focused thing we did. And even other customers are telling us like, hey, your platform is more stable now. So that's just been my experience. So don't shy away, even if it's only affecting one or two customers. But if everybody can benefit, go at it. So the internal teams will listen.
Excellent. Now I have a question for all of you, and I'm just curious, how are you guys measuring customer health, and has that changed at all this year? What are some of the things that you guys are doing to gauge customer health, to gauge customer satisfaction?
Yeah, I think we've moved to we used to, prior to Gainsight, have a very tribal knowledge kind of catch can method for knowing if customers were happy or not. And so very often we'd be surprised by the unhappy, customer that would come through and churn out. Now, my CSM team is sort of purely value delivery. There's an account management team that owns the renewal, but we own renewal readiness and sort of make sure that there are no sort of sharks in the water before they go in for for an increase and lift on renewal. But we've moved to much more objective data. So our scorecard is built up from a combination of customer logins and the delta over time. So how often are they using the tool? And then normal looks different for different customers. So we had to build some pretty sophisticated rules to say, normal logins for one customer might be 50 times a month. Another customer might be 4 times a month. And so we look at the delta over time, and if it changes, then we start, diminishing that's one score measure. Another that we use is we get survey data from every ticket has a thumbs up, thumbs down on was this helpful or not. So we have the hooks into our ticketing solution as well. So we see customers that are giving down votes or like not helpful, but we also look at ticket age, we look at number of tickets, we look at number of tickets over time, and then we build cohorts of frequency, frequency, recency, and rating. Those are sort of the three metrics that for the ticketing side of it. And so that also is a scorecard measure. Finally, there's QBR exec touches. So whether or not we've had a health check call with the customer or not. And so it's an activity tracker from activities that are logged in Salesforce. So that's another scorecard. And then finally, we have the Venn diagram of licensed or entitlements to used. So we've instrumented our signaling inside of our platform, so it tells us which modules a customer is activating, and then we know, because we're also linked to Salesforce, what SKUs they bought. And so we identify risk when a customer has bought, has entitled modules that they're not using. And so we see that as a risk of descope on renewal, where they might, it's the worst conversation to have is at renewal, them saying, well, I never use that, so I want to drop that. So to try to get ahead of the redlining and to get ahead of descoping, we then put them on a trickle campaign for that specific value chain. So if it's foreign exchange or payments, then we'll send them a feed of emails that are like, did you know you could do this with payments? Did you know you could do this with FX? And that seeks to sort of get them re-engaged. And again, because there's so many per CSM, we can't necessarily get on the phone and call them all, but we can put them on these drip campaigns, and it gives us an automated tech touch to sort of make sure that they're both aware that we have that, as well as, hopefully they see something in there like, oh, that's right, that does do that, and then we can get them engaged. So yeah, we've moved very, very radically from very subjective to very objective over the last, from March when we went live.
And sounds like a very proactive approach, particularly with your drip campaigns. That's pretty cool. All right, anyone else?
Yeah, we have a very high touch customer success model. So, so the CSM team that I work with is, they might have anywhere from, 10 to 15 clients that they're working with at any time. So, so we actually, what I've found is, even if our usage data is solid and healthy, the CSM sentiment that they're manually inputting on a monthly basis is a real driver at what's actually happening within the account. So we have, some clear kind of risk categories that we have laid out for us, and we have a scale at which, a C account means that there's one significant risk. If there's more than one significant risk, we're going to make them a D. And so those indicators I find can often be more true of the likelihood to renew. Even when we have great green healthy usage across all sorts of different calculations that we have are built into our scorecard and Gainsight, the sentiment is huge for our particular client base.
Awesome.
Yeah, we also, my internet is having problem today. Hopefully it's okay. Yeah, we don't use Gainsight. We used to actually, we stopped. So we also have depend on the CSM, how we feel about the engagement. There's some few metrics we kind of watch. It's consumption-based model, but it's really how is it going, right? So the usage, the relationship, the engagement, or the new use cases being identified, how is the overall sentiment of the customer. And then we have what we call the expand team. Weekly or bi-weekly, they review all the customer health ratings.
Excellent. Great.
Yeah, we do it similarly with a combination of system usage data, user activity, engagement, and also CSM sentiment. And similar to Jill, I think that the CSM sentiment is probably the most accurate indicator, especially for a high touch account. One thing that I would love to see our organization do is build in outcomes is obviously the hot buzzword at Gainsight and other places. So build in some sort of outcome. It can sometimes be a little bit more subjective to measure, but I would love to see a more objective measurement of, are they achieving their outcome, tied into our scorecard somehow. So that would be something that I would love to hear ideas on if others have been successful with that.
What sort of metrics, and I guess that's what you're asking, I guess what sort of metrics we could, I guess, loop into outcomes?
Yeah, so for give you an example, like MavenLink, we're a software for professional services teams. So there are a few tangible ways that our clients can measure their success. So if, say, their utilization of employees improve, but a lot of our clients, their outcomes are more, it's really hard to get them to be more specific. Their outcomes might be consolidating all of their data for their service delivery into a single solution. So, yes, you can count how many systems they're using, but how would you measure that outcome over time? So it's a combination of getting our CSMs to truly understand and drill down into how to measure that. And that would be something that it'd be interesting to hear if others use, say, a survey or something inputted by the CSM to measure an outcome.
That's a good thought. That's a great idea. Does anybody else do anything similar? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I think we need to get there. With a lot of our clients, our software feels like a nice to have, and so being more outcome focused is really essential, especially with those trickier renewals, to prove that we are aligning to their desired outcomes. So it's in conversations right now. We haven't implemented anything. We are in the process of implementing Gainsight success plans, which I think will help to get us there. We're managing success plans kind of outside of Gainsight today, and but I don't know that we've gotten to that that tightly aligned kind of outcomes place that I'd like to see us go.
I'm just curious, what are you using to, I guess, manage your success plans? Is it
PowerPoint?
Oh.
No, we different CSMs are storing those either in PowerPoint or in Excel, but then within our own software, we have something that we call Workspace, which is a shared kind of collaboration folder that sits within our own tool. So we leverage that today, or we'll put them in the client tenant workspace, and so then it's a shared access point between the client and the CSM. So we're doing that a little bit today, but yeah, I would like there to be more kind of visibility at the manager and above level of what are those outcomes that we're tracking for each client, and how are we doing stacking up against those.
Awesome.
Yeah, we haven't started using success plans yet. Well, I take that back. We do use them, but not fully in the way that you're describing and how I'd like to see them used. And I agree that that's a good place in Gainsight to really be tracking that.
Yeah, success plan, I do feel like it's a stretch goal, but we all need to get there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Well, we are coming down to our last 1 minute and 55 seconds. I'm staring at the timer before they close out this break room, this breakout session. So what I just wanted to just confirm with everyone, it seems like overall we're seeing some variability in our businesses. I think we can all agree that we've all had to kind of try to position around what's been going on with the present state of affairs. But it seems like what a lot of us are looking toward is, being more proactive in our approaches. It seems like each of us have had to be a bit creative in terms of how we had to do it. I think one thing that you said, Jennifer, which was key, which was just kind of like really having a proactive approach. I think I heard this, kind of similar themes from Ray and Jill as well. Just being very proactive, whether that, be a drip campaign or, a workshop, really just targeting those customers. I really like what I've heard from each of you guys. Are there any final thoughts that you guys would like to share? Or aha moments, if any?
I just, for myself, I find it cathartic and comforting that other folks are going through the same sort of challenges. Like, it's just to feel like I'm not alone, because it does feel like sometimes, like, am I the only one? Am I just crazy? So it's great hearing that other folks are facing the same challenges and having some success overcoming them.
Sure. All right, great, guys. So we're down to the last 10 seconds. And I just want to use this time to thank everybody for jumping on. Each of you guys everybody's been like a moderator today. I don't feel like I've been one. So thank you so much, and see you shortly.
Thanks, Rick.
To be clear that we need that revenue to renew in 3 years or whatever it might be. The other thing I will say about the President's Club, because I think it's great that you guys do that, because, and you probably recognize this, it's not just about going to Hawaii. When you're in Hawaii, you're with all the higher ups in the company, and you're getting recognized, and it gives you a lot of power that you can then yield to maybe go have a conversation with those people. So now, I remember the first time I went, I was a couple of weeks later when I got back, I was, having lunch with the president, and that would never happen if you don't go to club, because when you're at club, it's not the same. Everybody's having fun, you're having some drinks, you're enjoying yourself, you've got all this status, and you can form those relationships a lot easier. I don't know how big your company is, but if it's a good sized company, sometimes it's hard to do that unless you're at like some high management level. I'm an individual contributor, so I'm not that, but it's pretty much a game changer in terms of the access that you have to some key people. So maybe, Jeffrey, to your point, maybe that helps you to sit down with those folks and really help them understand what they probably don't understand, which is the big role that you all play in growing the whole company's revenue. So that's when I was hearing you talk, those are things that jumped out at me, and good for you being that advanced on the President's Club. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Testament to our executive team. I can't take credit, but I'm certainly happy we have it. And to answer your question, we're a little over 400 people right now.
All right, so while we have 6 minutes here, want to be conscious of the time. Let's move on to the next question. Maybe have one of our CSMs speak. Philo, what challenges are you struggling with right now that as a group we could discuss together related to customer acquisition, retention? Obviously with COVID, that definitely throws a wrench in customer acquisition, deploying, I think, unique tactics compared to what we might, in what world would you ever talk to a customer about, hey, concessions, especially at a mass scale. So why don't I'll leave it to the group. Philo, why don't we get started with you?
Yeah, sure. So actually at my company, we're deploying a new platform, sort of like a 2.0. And we were planning on migrating a lot of our accounts, especially our legacy accounts, on Q1, but due to COVID-19 and also some technical issue and lag in development, we're not able to. And so with renewal coming up end of Q4, that's kind of an issue for us in terms of keeping the customer happy and preventing churn. So I'm not sure if this is something that's happened to you guys. How would you approach this with the clients so that you can prevent churn and basically keep the relationship from being on thin ice at this point?
That's definitely a tough one. One from the group have some good advice for her. Whitney, I'm sure you have some good advice on this one, being a seasoned CFO.
Yeah. I think I was going to share kind of a similar struggle, and I was going to also share that I think my question was answered a little bit in this topic of identifying a positive ROI, what Dan was sharing. Because I think I'm in a very similar situation where I have a client that's very focused on what they perceive to be a business critical functionality. that does not align with our product roadmap in the immediate term. And so I was thinking about that. That's what I was going to share, is like, how can I get this customer to refocus their attention on what is good about the solution and what is working, to, you know, not completely distract them, but refocus their attention. So I think, if possible, I don't know the way that your product offering exactly works, but maybe the option would be to get a little bit more tactical on identifying ROI and the parts of the product that are going to be released that are meaningful and actually maybe even revenue generating for your customer.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Something I've done too.
It's really tough.
Beta releases. I'm not sure how vetted out the product is. It sounds like development has been delayed, but using it as a carrot for renewal. Hey, we'll include you in a beta or alpha release. That way they could get started. They feel like they're still getting some value in exchange for the renewal. So that way it's not you're having to wait for launch. Obviously this requires a lot of coordination with the product team, and not all product teams are that way. But that's one way that I've done it successfully, especially at my previous company where we lacked in terms of product development and it was really slow, making customers feel like they're, one, getting that solution, but also really involved in the maturity and making sure that it really works for them and having that partnership. Those are just some examples of how I've at least worked to solve that problem in the past. Any others?
I would say similarly, we've sometimes put folks on some kind of an advisory board so that they have access to these folks, because, you know, just because somebody else has a feature that sounds good that you didn't have any input into, that doesn't mean it's really going to solve your issue. There's going to be other needs you're going to have. So why not put you in touch with these folks that are really responsible for, you know, growing the product in a certain direction. You'll have access and you'll have your feedback heard by the people that matter. That's the other thing that might work, but it's a tough situation for sure.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, guys. I'll definitely keep that in mind.
And Whitney, did we address your specific challenge?
I think so. I mean, we also have a customer advisory board. I think just engaging customers in the conversation and hearing about what's important to them is a great tactic. Yeah, I mean, if anybody else has any other ideas about how to refocus a client when they've got their perceived business critical functionality, I'm definitely open to hearing it.
Something I've also done is making sure that I'm reaching different aspects of the organization. You may get one end user who's so stuck on some, hey, why isn't your UI pink? And it's really valuable. And I'd like you to change it for all customers. You're always going to get that. So I found that if you do executive level escalations, if you develop champions across the organization, generally that helps, because then you could also leverage them to become the challenger. Hey, this is your CEOs, this is your company's business objectives. These are, you know, your KPIs that are ultimately going to reach there. It helps them sort of shift away from that lower level, really minuscule thing that they're likely really focused and obsessed on.
That's a really great point. I like that. Thank you.
Any advice from others there? Jeffrey, I'm sure you have some advice for these CSMs here.
Well, I just told one of mine, you know, sometimes you just have to go with bold conviction, and, you know, you have a stubborn customer and they want to go down a certain path in an implementation, and they don't want to go through all the steps. They want to just, you know, they think their time to value would be shortened by going this route. And so you just have to tell them, listen, we've got 93,000 customers. We do this every day. This is my job. I can onboard 6 customers a day on some days. Trust me, I know it doesn't seem like it, and I know this is not what you want to do, but I'm in this position as your trusted advisor, and part of that is to tell you when I think you need to go this way instead of that way. Although that's not what you want to hear, this is the path. And we have this program designed for a particular way by professionals that have been doing this longer than we have. And this is, you know, just trust me and jump with me. So.
Perfect. And not to cut us short, this was a great conversation, but our session time has ended. So unless there's any further questions, I'm gonna jump us back to the main conference here. It was very nice meeting you all.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks.
Thanks.
We've only got 5 minutes. So everybody, if you can individually in the chat, write down what was a key takeaway that you got from your discussion, because we're going to create a blog post later of the key takeaways. We're going to have a recording of this session. And so I want to make sure that you guys, that those are all documented. Are you guys able to see my screen too?
It doesn't look like you're sharing yet.
Okay, all right. So, how about now?
Not yet.
Here we go. I see. Okay, so we're going to do this one. Okay. All right. So please, everybody write in the chat now kind of what your key takeaway was. This is next month's events, but the reason I want you to write those key takeaways is we're going to have a link to that along with the blog in this link for now. We'll have a landing page. And then also Tiffany, who's been a host in one of the breakout rooms, she and her team in San Diego have a new upcoming event here coming up the day before ours. So it's next month on Wednesday. Ours is next month on Thursday following. So please be sure, to register for that. I actually will be a host on this particular one. And next session for us, these are we're going to break up into chapters for this instead of topics. It'll be chapter breakout. So Tiffany, what was like one main key? We got 3 minutes. So each moderator, 1 minute real quick. What was kind of a key takeaway you got from your group that everybody got value from?
Sure, and I'm seeing it definitely resonate in the chats here, but definitely making sure that you're providing ROI to the customer and really pushing back, especially when they're asking for concessions in the time of COVID, as they say. So providing ROI and also getting executive level contacts to make sure you're really feeding into what's valuable for the entire organization and not just the individual end users.
Great. And then Laura, how about for you?
Yeah, we had really great conversation around, how do you kind of align the organization and really get them ready. So one of the key things that surfaced for us was, share successes with other people throughout the organization who may not be fully aligned in this need to focus on the customer, develop value for them and really deliver on that. And then also, Ty made a great point in our chat, which was make those people think that they are the genius. So make them think it's their idea, right? So we all know that we all like to be acknowledged for our own ideas.
So great.
Inherently, right? So, it's, so those were both really great. Anthony had the great idea of the successes and Ty from the,
great. That's excellent. And then great advice. And then Rick?
Yes. So, our discussion was pretty much focused around, customer solutions in light of course, the present state of affairs. And one of the things that we kind of took the first half of the discussion to dive in on was, what sort of problems are we seeing? And I think we all agree that we are all having to position in some sort of way. But a lot of the solutions that were brought up were, number one, of course, being proactive. So some examples that were brought up were, email drip campaigns for customers who, might be waning a bit in terms of their interaction with us, maybe even having some proactive workshops. That was a great idea, kind of focusing on those customers. And then overall, just being creative and nimble, but a very, very good, engaging discussion with everyone.
Oh, good. And we've run out of time, but just very quickly, 2 things that are really important. One is from our group, we had one that is starting a whole new category and is trying to figure out a framework for customer success. And I provided some ideas there. And then Adrian is with IFS And one of the things that they're doing to help move this along, you know, this new idea of customer success, it's something new that they're doing, is by putting services, support, and account management all under one roof, under one leader, so that there's, and business transformation, so everybody is more aligned. And then he's doing, you know, kind of the normal kind of QBRs and that sort of stuff. So we'll have all of these takeaways in the chat and from this discussion. And if you guys have any resources that you want to share with people, put it in the comment section of the page that we're going to put together that will be on that, you know, link to the next event, blog takeaways. So feel free to use that comment section almost as a community to share information between calls. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate your time. We'll see you at the next one.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.